So now I'm happy to welcome the next speaker, who has also many years of experience in cooperating with Chinese partners. Since the founding of Lesara in 2013, the online shop has very closely worked together with Chinese suppliers. And in 2015, Lesara opened an office in, well, I tried to learn this, but Guangzhou, okay, sorry. Please welcome Roman Herzog. He is the founder of Lesara, and he will talk about how his company managed to grow by 8,000%. Was this right? 8,000 in China. Welcome, Roman. Thank you for coming.
So, Corinna, I just turned the president, or the ex-president, because my family name is Kirsch, not Herzog, but we're very close. So I just have 10 or 15 minutes, and what I would really like to do, first of all, thanks for inviting us, or me, and what I'd really like to do is to give, a five-minute history of, how we actually went into China, and I think saying or stating that we have a lot of experience in China is actually not true, because we were just there for 2 years, but I can definitely tell a bit more about, what we actually encountered, and it's been a, very wild ride over the last 2 years also in China, but we fell in love into this country. I think it was love at second sight, not first sight. It was chaos at first sight, but love at second sight. But I'm super happy to share a bit of insights, and also maybe the last 2-3 minutes answer a few questions. So I think first of all, before I talk a bit more about our business, I was positively surprised that there's already a lot of interaction happening, and companies on incubators like TechCode promoting that kind of communication, because there's been a lot of links between the US and Europe, and US and Berlin, but less so between China and Europe, which is just as important. So to give you an example, up until 5-6 years in our industry, so we are online retail business, we looked a lot into the US. What's the innovation? Where's the innovation coming from? And Asia and China had kind of the image of copying a lot of things. By the way, Berlin with Rocket Internet as well. But now in the last 2-3 years, we realized, oh my God, most of the innovation, most of the really exciting things are actually happening in Asia, and especially coming from China, be it around mobile-first apps, being around new applications, how to actually shop online, how to do on-time delivery, how to actually use online payments. So I think a lot of the things that Google, Apple, Facebook implement now or plan to implement have been already in China for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and it's now the other way around. So I think for us as Europeans, it's very, very important to also have better connection to the Asian market, especially to China, and see what's happening there so that we can learn. And for us, I can share a bit more about what we do in China and why we decided to go there. But for us, it's the biggest source of inspiration, not only in terms of the technology that's happening there, but also in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit and the attitude. So I think if we talk in Germany or Berlin about getting things done, it's one thing, but you don't really have to mention that. Getting things done in China is not a matter of days or weeks, it's just a matter of minutes and hours, and people are just so fast and entrepreneurial that it always fascinates me. So just 3-4 facts about ourselves. So as Corinna said, we founded the business 2013, and the basic idea was the most successful retailers in the offline industry of the past 2 decades have been fast fashion retailers or fast retailers. They've been really quick in the supply chain, understanding what's currently trending in the apparel and in the textile business, and putting that into their stores. H&M, Inditex, Primark lately. And what we actually said is, if you had to reinvent this kind of business now in the digital world, how would it look like? That's kind of with our business, with Lesara, we try to give the answer. And what we basically do is we start with actually a very much more data-driven selection of merchandise. So we don't go to fashion weeks and check what is being presented, but we look very much at data. So it's a very data-driven selection of the products. But then also we go directly to factories, educate them, have a very close relationship, and make sure that they get all the information real time and can produce real time to decrease the time to market from 6 month, 4 month, which is like the fastest fast retailers, to 5 to 10 working days. And this was a process, so we didn't do that at the very first year or 1.5 years, but now we're at the level where we can do that. Actually, the very first month and years, we went to Chinese wholesalers here in Europe. So in Neuss, in Hamburg, we actually drove all the way to the port and checked the containers, what arrived, what didn't arrive, took some pictures, put it online. But of course, that was not scalable. So we started actually using Alibaba. Checked, what are the biggest suppliers there? Can we contact them? At some point in time, we made like orders of €500,000 over Skype with people we've never met in person. And that was kind of the moment where we said, okay, we need to go there and actually meet the people once, yeah? And we are lucky enough that in the very early days, we had a Chinese investor, so the founders of VIP Shop, one of the biggest retailers in China, also based in Guangzhou, and they said, just come here, there's the Canton Fair, we'll show you around. And it was, as I said, chaos at first sight, because we arrived. I just had a printed out English version of the hotel, and no one actually could read it, so I spent 2 hours at the airport. But it was fascinating. I think it's really hard to describe. There's a lot of people from China. It's really hard to describe. If you're the first time there, everything is just multiplied by 100. It was just a big city. Guangzhou, probably, I'm not sure out of the Europeans who's heard of that city before, it's just bigger than any other European city, with 15 million people in the city and 40 million around that. And getting from A to B is just incredibly difficult. And the pace with which things are moving is also extremely difficult and great. So what we did is we just went there, got an apartment, and you have all those stereotypes about, it's bureaucratic, you need to know someone to move forward, and we realized it's just stereotypes. It's actually even easier to get things done. You just need to meet the right people. I think language is kind of the most challenging thing, because still very few people speak actually fluently English, and very few Europeans speak Mandarin or Cantonese in Guangzhou. So for us, that was, I think, the biggest thing. But in terms of culture, in terms of how to do business, in terms of how to communicate, in terms of goals, they're very much alike. And that was something that fascinated us, and that led us also to the decision of not only doing the sourcing there. So we have at the moment, in the last 12 months, hired up to 50 people who actually manage the relationships with the suppliers. And who are some of the brightest and most talented people that I've ever worked together with, most ambitious as well. So the biggest challenge is to get them out of the office and not get them into the office, so they always want to work harder and be better. But we also decided to actually do way more. So we said, okay, those are the people who are very creative about creating content. So we did all the photo shoots, the videos there, because they have an experience with Tmall and Taobao to make that even harder. Because if you sell something here on Amazon, on eBay, you compete with a few people. You have to be good. But there on Tmall, you compete with millions of individual sellers. So you have to be the best. So that's why you invest way more time into the pictures. Make sure that the pictures are even better on the mobile phone. Because over 80-90% of transactions are on mobile, and make sure that for each different product type, the videos and the pictures are just on the spot. And this is kind of what we realized and said, okay, we're not going to do it in Berlin anymore. We moved that also to Guangzhou. We moved the quality control to Guangzhou. We moved a lot of our supply chain there, not because it was cheaper. Fun fact, I think our rent square meter price for our office in Guangzhou is actually more expensive than in Berlin, but actually because people are actually better there. So that was for us in some areas, and that was for us very, very insightful. And by now, fast forward 1.5 years after we first came into the country, so I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but 1.5 years makes me a rookie, and I still learn every time. But 1.5 years after being there, we can say that a big part of our success and a big part of our learning curve is due to our China employees, and to our supply chain there, and to our team, and to the decision to go there. And as always in life, if you think about it too hard, it probably is not a good thing, and we just did it. Same for founding a company or making a tough decision. just do it, and you can figure yourself out. It's not a bureaucratic nightmare. It's actually easier to get things started. And I think for us it's a very specific case because we replicated our supply chain there. But the same is actually true for if you want to sell into the market. I think there's a lot of examples, again, from my industry, from online retail, how a lot of European companies went into the market and have been successfully, is tremendously successful, like Windeln, the European diapers, who has more than 60% of their revenues and 90% of their profits there. But also, old offline shops. I think the most popular shop on Taobao and Tmall is actually Vero Moda, so a shop that would be like number 77 here in Europe, but they've done a lot of things differently and make a lot of their revenues and profits there. So I think it's if you grasp the opportunity, hire smart and great talent there, and go into the market, it's definitely worth it. And I think it's a very good decision. I'm extremely thankful to have been able to encounter so many nice people there, learn about the culture, and also try to make sure that we instill some of that ambition and eagerness into kind of our European employees, and vice versa, try to get our Chinese employees to be a bit more outspoken, communicate more, and challenge things, which is not in their DNA. But I think it has worked very well in both ways, and I think that has contributed a lot to our success now, which is quite. I would say, we are very happy of where we are. We just got awarded as fastest growing tech company in Europe. We grew over 8,000%. We managed to actually increase our merchandise, our products, from 10,000 to more than 80,000 in just a year, thanks to our supply chain there. And we managed to, as I said, cut the time to market from a month, which was already very fast, to now 10 working days, which helps us a lot with our business model. So yeah, thanks a lot for having us. Thanks for the initiative, and I think it's a really important thing to increase transparency, communication between the two markets, because I think everyone can benefit and learn. And I managed to catch up 3 minutes that Daniel lost because he was extending. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, Corinna is happy to do a presentation, to do a discussion, right?
So thank you very much. Did I really say Herzog? I'm so sorry, because Mr. Herzog, he was just sitting there before you came, so I'm sorry, I mixed it all up. I apologize. So do you have any questions? Because this was very interesting insight on how to grow business in China. Yes, please. Would you
Hi,
please
my
tell
name's
us?
Yichen, and I had a quick question. So in Guangzhou, is the main language there Mandarin or Cantonese? And if you only knew how to speak Mandarin, would that be an issue in Guangzhou or just the southern China
So it's actually
region?
funny because our company language is actually English. So we have out of the total 70 employees there, so 50 are doing sourcing. Out of the 70 employees total, 15 are European and the rest is Chinese. But actually Mandarin is the main language. Why? Because a lot of the people in the area don't come from the Guangdong area, but are moving in there, and they don't speak Cantonese. So I think sometimes people make jokes about each other because some of them don't speak Cantonese, but literally everywhere in the financial district where a lot of internationals and business people meet together, it's actually Mandarin.
And also another quick question.
I don't speak the language, so.
So for the sales teams and just the factory owners, did they know English or was it hard communicating with them?
No, that was one of the initial reasons why we said we need kind of local expertise there, because they're blue-collar entrepreneurs, yeah, but they have like no formal education or whatsoever, so they just speak Mandarin or partially only Cantonese. So that's why we have a fantastic team that speaks actually both languages and manages all the relationships there. And also a big learning, because we had in the beginning a lot of European suppliers, and that's it's a completely different way of actually working together. Because here you just give a 5-minute pitch and point out the win-win situations and they're on board, yeah. And there it's you first really it's not a cliche in this. There's a lot of cliches, but this one is not. You really have to meet first, eat. they make you eat exotic stuff. Then fortunately, there's also a lot of Bavarian restaurants there. So as a second step, you invite them to a Bavarian restaurant, and for them, schnitzel is really disgusting. So it's, and you know that's how it goes. So it takes a bit more time, but then people are really warming up and inviting you to home, and you know it's a way more emotional relationship and less a functional one.
Yes, please. Yeah. The microphone is coming.
Hi, my name is Maximilian. How do you had evaluated your original partners and also the market opportunities before you started?
In China?
Yeah.
So the thing is, we have hundreds of partners now, right? So it was not something where we said, so we didn't need to create a joint venture whatsoever. You know, we just set up a BOFI, so wholly owned foreign entity. So we're 100% owners of our Chinese entity, of course. And I think for us, it was it's not like we did billion-dollar deals from the get-going, and also the kind of people we work together with. I know that in the past 5 years, if you had to do anything with sensible industries or something that was kind of where government was involved, it was always a bit more tricky. But to be honest, the tech world and tech entrepreneurs are just as easygoing and quick and trustworthy as anywhere else in the world. And for the suppliers, they're used over the past 6 years to work with European and US partners. So it's not like a big clash of expectations if you approach them and tell them your exact expectation and demands. So it was not like we invested years into managing. We didn't have the time. We just said, okay, in February we moved over, and until April we needed 50 partners, and then we interviewed 500, and the best 10% we selected. Ladies first.
So I am not quite sure if I got that right. Is your main market in Germany, or is your main market in China? So I understood.
So we are online retailers selling to 23 countries. So all of those markets are actually in Europe. So we sell to Germany, Italy, France, UK, and a lot more. And a lot of our supply chain and our employees are actually in China, handling a lot of the supply chain. So because we produce products, we do the designs, we work with the factories, we quality control all of that, and create also now the content there.
Have you considered entering the Chinese market, trying to sell to Chinese customers?
I think that's always an option. And it's a big market, a super fast-growing market. I think for us, the challenge is you always need a different market strategy or market entry strategy for the Chinese market. So to give you an example, if our USP for our consumers in Europe is great products at great prices and faster at our platform than anywhere else, because we have the trends as at first sight. But a lot of the argument is around having amazing products at amazing prices. That's not how you win in China, because you don't want to compete. This is the market where everything comes from, so you don't want to even communicate price as one of the decisions, as one of the criterias. So I think a lot of the fast fashion, but also in other categories, a lot of the retailers went in there and had a completely different strategy. So IKEA, which is also known here for super great prices and being very simple and clean, is actually a luxury product, and they present themselves as the Nordic design company, right? Which is funny. Same actually for H&M, which is kind of their high end. And I think you have to communicate differently. You have to present yourselves differently. But Europe has a very good, reputation. If you are, for example, in Guangzhou, you see a lot of buses driving around with advertising for dentists with the German flag. Apparently, for some reason, German dentists are popular. I don't know why that happened. And Italian beauty surgeons. So, but sometimes there's just one news story, and then everyone thinks that this country is the best for this, and then you know it's a big market opportunity. Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more question, please.
You had experience with your investor, and how are Chinese capital, VCs, so venture capital is different from European or Silicon Valley ones?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so. To be honest, they're Chinese investors, but they're actually Harvard educated and New York stock listed, so they're very international, right? We also talked a lot to more traditional Chinese investors, so family offices, or you know people who are close to government funds, and I think for us. We always rejected those offers. Why? Because we had a bit of a lack of transparency. We never knew who's involved, who's in charge, who's the decision maker. So I think a lot of funds a lot of things are quite intransparent, at least for us as Europeans and for Americans. And many times no one knows where the money's coming from. So we kind of never wanted to do that. But I think there's also a lot. I think there's just less transparency in the market. But there's a lot of good partners, but also a lot of people who just happen to have a lot of money and who just want to go crazy and invest. But you never know anything about that. So I think in terms of working together with Chinese investors, in our case was the same as with, we also have US investors, we have European investors, it was literally the same. They look at the same things. They're just as entrepreneurial, but there's also different type of, I would say, less sophisticated investors, where it's up to you if you want to make that bet. I mean, it's probably better than taking this money than no money at all, but I think it's a bit like Russian roulette, if you know what I mean.
One last question, because I didn't understand how you managed to get the products from China to here in 10 working days. You're flying them in?
So basically what we do exactly, so we work with air freight. Our warehouse is very close to the Hong Kong airport, so 30 minutes actually, and then we fly things in. But we do all the quality control already there, so then we don't have to fly it back in case there's a mistake. All right. Thanks a lot, and now enjoy the rest of the evening with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.